Humanity's ability to communicate with the beasts of Earth is evidence of their savagery, roared Draco, staring down the human at the imposing Galactic Council table. As chief military strategist for the Council, Draco had spent years observing humanity's ascent from afar. Now, a lone human ambassador stood before the Council, representing a species that seemed hell-bent on upending the galactic order with their unpredictable ways. On the lush planet Misaria, 12 alien races, each more advanced than the last, had gathered to determine the fate of humanity. Would they be welcomed as equals or annihilated as a threat? That was the question that hung in the air as Draco rose to his full 7-foot height, his scales glinting under the chamber lights. The human, Matthew Perry, stood unflinching, a German shepherd named Max by his side. Perry had seen his share of battles as a Navy SEAL back on Earth, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. Draco clicked a button, and a holographic display sprang to life above the Council table. Images of human wars, nuclear explosions, and environmental destruction played out in vivid detail. "Observe," Draco hissed, "the violence inherent in their nature, and now they have advanced to the point where they threaten us all." Perry stepped forward, his voice steady. "Yes, we have a history of conflict, but we have also learned from our mistakes. Our bond with animals is a testament to our capacity for empathy and cooperation." The Council members murmured amongst themselves, some nodding in agreement, others shaking their heads in disbelief. They had never encountered a species that could communicate with lesser beings. Draco sneered. "Empathy, cooperation? These are foreign concepts to humans. They lack the unity required to join our galactic community." Perry's jaw tightened. He knew that the fate of his entire species hung in the balance. If he couldn't convince the Council of humanity's worth, they would face extinction. "I assure you," Perry said, his eyes locked on Draco, "any hostile action against Earth will be met with fierce resistance. We may be young, but we are not to be underestimated." The Council fell silent, the weight of Perry's words sinking in. Finally, the Misarian Prime Minister spoke. "We will send an observation team to Earth to assess the situation. Until then, Ambassador Perry, we advise you to prepare your people. The galaxy is watching." As Perry exited the chamber, Max trotting faithfully by his side, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The battle for humanity's place in the stars had just begun, and failure was not an option. The survival of his entire species depended on what happened next. Deep within the heart of the Amazon rainforest, Commander Zorg and his team of elite Misarian operatives worked tirelessly to establish their hidden base. Cloaked by advanced technology, the base was virtually undetectable to human eyes and sensors. Zorg, a seasoned veteran with a scar running down his left eye, barked orders as his team unloaded their sophisticated surveillance equipment. "I want eyes on every major city and military installation within the next 24 hours, Zorg growled, his voice laced with determination. "We must gather as much intel as possible before the Council makes its final decision." Back in Washington, D.C., Matthew Perry paced the halls of the Pentagon, his mind racing with possibilities. He couldn't shake the feeling that the Misarians were up to something sinister. With a determined stride, he entered the office of his commanding officer, Admiral John Hawkins. "Sir, I have reason to believe that the Misarian observation team poses a significant threat to our national security," Perry stated, his voice unwavering. Admiral Hawkins leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed. "What makes you say that, Perry?" "Call it a gut feeling, sir. I've seen the way they operate. They're not here to observe, they're here to plan an attack." The Admiral considered Perry's words for a moment before nodding. "All right, Perry. Assemble a team of our best men and find out what the Misarians are up to. But remember, we can't afford to start an interstellar war. Tread carefully." Perry saluted and exited the office, his mind already formulating a plan. He knew just the men for the job. His first stop was the home of Lieutenant Jake Maverick Thompson, his longtime friend and fellow Navy SEAL. Thompson, a rugged man with a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, greeted Perry with a firm handshake. "What's the mission, boss?" Thompson asked, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "We've got a potential alien threat on our hands, Mav. I need you and your Falcon, Zeus, to help us track them down." Thompson grinned. "You know I'm always ready for action. Let me grab my gear." Next, Perry visited Dr. Ethan Winters at his animal behavior research facility. Dr. Winters, a lanky man with a mop of curly hair, was in the middle of a training session with Samson, a massive gorilla. "Dr. Winters, I apologize for the interruption, but I need your expertise," Perry said, watching in awe as Samson followed the doctor's hand signals with precision. Dr. Winters turned to face Perry, a curious expression on his face. "How can I be of assistance, Ambassador?" "I'm assembling a team to track down the Mizarian observers. Your knowledge of animal behavior and communication could be invaluable." Dr. Winters nodded, a determined look in his eye. "I'll do whatever I can to help. Samson and I will be ready to depart at a moment's notice." As Perry's team set out into the dense jungle, armed with cutting-edge tracking equipment and accompanied by their animal companions, they had no idea of the horrors that awaited them. Deep in the heart of the rainforest, the Mizarians were preparing for war, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Unbeknownst to Perry and his team, Zeus had spotted unusual activity near a seemingly empty clearing. The Falcon's keen eyes had detected a slight shimmer, a telltale sign of advanced cloaking technology. Perry, Thompson, and Dr. Winters approached the area cautiously, weapons at the ready. Suddenly, a Mizarian scout materialized out of thin air, his plasma rifle aimed directly at Perry's chest. Thompson reacted instantly, tackling the scout to the ground as Max lunged for the alien's throat. In the ensuing chaos, Perry managed to disarm the scout, revealing a small device on his wrist. "It's a cloaking device," Dr. Winters exclaimed, examining the alien technology with fascination. Perry's eyes widened as he realized the implications. "They've been spying on us this whole time. We need to find their base and figure out what they're planning." Using the captured cloaking device and the heightened senses of their animal companions, Perry's team managed to infiltrate the Mizarian base undetected. Inside, they discovered a treasure trove of intel, detailed maps of Earth's major cities, schematics of military installations, and a dossier on humanity's defensive capabilities. "My God," Thompson whispered, his face pale. "They're planning a full-scale invasion." As they delved deeper into the base, they stumbled upon a holding cell containing a badly beaten Mizarian. The prisoner, Khazar, looked up at them with a mixture of fear and defiance in his eyes. "You're too late," Khazar spat, his voice weak but filled with venom. "The attack has already begun." Dr. Winters, using his skills in animal communication, called upon a group of chimpanzees to help extract information from Khazar. The chimps, highly intelligent and trained in interrogation techniques, were able to coax valuable details from the prisoner. "They're targeting our cities first," Dr. Winters relayed, his face grim. "New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, all set to be wiped out in a matter of hours." Perry clenched his fists, his mind racing. They had to warn Earth's leaders and mount a defense, but time was running out. As they raced back to civilization, the sky above them filled with the ominous shapes of Mizarian warships, their weapons primed and ready to rain destruction upon the planet. In the halls of the Galactic Council, tensions were reaching a breaking point. News of the Mizarian attack had spread like wildfire, and the other member species were divided on how to respond. Some called for immediate retaliation against the Mizarians, while others advocated for diplomacy and a peaceful resolution. Draco, the chief military strategist, stood before the council once more, his eyes blazing with fury. "The humans have brought this upon themselves," he roared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "They have proven to be a threat to the galactic order, and they must be dealt with swiftly and decisively." As the council members argued and debated, Perry and his team were racing against time to save their world from annihilation. The fate of humanity, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders, and failure was not an option. As the Mizarian warships screamed through the void of space towards Earth, Perry gripped the controls of the captured stealth shuttle. "This is it, team," he said over the comms. "We've got one shot at this. Maverick, you're with me. We're going to take out those plasma cannons. Dr. Winters, you and Echo get to the aquatic interface and work your magic." The shuttle slipped undetected into the Titan's hangar bay, the strike team moving with precision and speed. Perry and Maverick fought their way to the weapons control room, plasma bolts sizzling past their heads. "Cover me!" Perry yelled, ducking behind a console and frantically typing commands. Maverick laid down suppressing fire, his rifle barking in the confined space. With a final keystroke, the plasma cannons went dark. "Got it!" Perry shouted. "Let's get the hell out of here!" But as they turned to leave, a plasma bolt caught Maverick square in the chest. He crumpled to the ground, blood pooling beneath him. "Mav!" Perry screamed, dragging his friend to cover. "Stay with me, buddy. We're going to get you out of here." In the Titan's aquatic section, Dr. Winters and Echo worked feverishly at the interface, the dolphin's clicks and whistles translating into complex code. Sweat poured down the doctor's face as he typed, the fate of Earth hanging in the balance. With a triumphant squeak, Echo sent the final command. The Mizarian fleet, receiving the false orders, broke formation in confusion. "We did it!" Dr. Winters exclaimed. "Now let's rendezvous with Perry and get off this ship." As the team regrouped at the shuttle, Perry cradled Maverick's head in his lap. "Hang in there, Mav," he whispered. "We're going home." The shuttle burst from the Titan's hangar, streaking towards Earth. In the distance, the team could see the fierce space battle unfolding. Earth's fighters, led by the United States Space Force, darted and weaved among the Mizarian ships, their tactics unorthodox but effective. A squadron of fighters, each piloted by a human with an animal co-pilot, tore through the Mizarian ranks. A chimpanzee named Boomer, riding in the back of a fighter, used his incredible dexterity to operate the weapon systems, raining fire upon the enemy. But even with their valiant efforts, the humans were still vastly outnumbered. The Mizarians, recovering from their initial confusion, began to regroup and press their attack. As Perry's strike team raced back to Earth aboard the captured Mizarian shuttle, the space battle raged on above them. Flashes of plasma fire and the twisted wreckage of destroyed ships filled the void. Perry gripped the shuttle controls tightly, his knuckles white as he pushed the engines to their limit. "We need to get down there and take the fight to the Mizarians on the ground," Perry said, his voice strained with urgency. Max, the loyal German shepherd, whined softly beside him, sensing his master's tension. As the shuttle pierced the Earth's atmosphere, Perry activated the comms. "This is Ambassador Perry to all Earth forces. We have intel on the Mizarian ground invasion, requesting immediate support." The response came swiftly. "Ambassador Perry, this is Chief Soaring Eagle of the Apache Squadron. We're en route to your location with a flight of attack helicopters. Our Eagle companions have already scouted the Mizarian positions." Perry allowed himself a small smile. The Native American aviators were legendary for their piloting skills and their bond with the majestic birds of prey. The shuttle touched down on the outskirts of New York City, the once bustling metropolis now a smoldering battleground. Mizarian dropships loomed overhead, disgorging hordes of heavily armed troops. Perry and his team quickly rendezvoused with Chief Soaring Eagle and his Apache pilots. The Eagles circled above, their keen eyes marking targets for the helicopter's missiles. "Let's show these alien bastards what happens when they mess with Earth," Chief Soaring Eagle said, his voice crackling over the comms. With a roar of rotors and a scream of engines, the Apache squadron took to the skies, raining hellfire on the Mizarian positions. Perry and his team moved through the rubble-strewn streets, engaging the enemy in close-quarters combat. Max lunged at a Mizarian soldier, his powerful jaws clamping down on the alien's throat. Nearby, Samson the gorilla used his immense strength to flip an armored vehicle, sending the occupants tumbling out in disarray. Suddenly, a plasma bolt sizzled past Perry's head. He spun to see Draco, the Mizarian chief military strategist, emerge from the smoke, flanked by a squad of elite warriors in advanced exoskeletons. "You've caused enough trouble, human," Draco snarled, leveling his plasma rifle at Perry. But before Draco could fire, a blur of fur and fangs slammed into him. Ghost, the alpha of the genetically enhanced timber wolves, had arrived with his pack. The wolves tore into the Mizarian elites, their heightened senses and coordination allowing them to outmaneuver the aliens' superior technology. Draco and Perry faced off, trading blows in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Around them the battle raged, humans and animals fighting side by side against the Mizarian invaders. In Tokyo, a similar scene unfolded. Japanese special forces, aided by their highly trained macaque monkeys, waged a guerrilla war against the Mizarian occupation. The monkeys used their agility to navigate the city's intricate underground tunnels, planting explosives and striking at the enemy's supply lines. As the ground battles intensified, Perry's wrist communicator crackled to life. It was Dr. Winters, his voice urgent. "Perry, the Dolphins have intercepted a crucial message. The Mizarian homeworld is virtually undefended. They never expected an attack on their own soil." Perry's mind raced. This was the opportunity they needed to end the war once and for all. He disengaged from his fight with Draco and rallied his team. "We're taking the fight to Mizaria," he announced, his voice filled with raw determination. "Gather our best soldiers and their animal partners. We launch in 1 hour." As Perry's strike force assembled, he knew that the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy rested on their shoulders. It was a desperate gamble, but it was their only chance to stop the Mizarian threat and protect their world. With Max, Zeus, Samson, Echo, Ghost, and the macaques by their side, the human warriors prepared for their most daring mission yet, a direct assault on the heart of the Mizarian Empire. Failure was not an option. The survival of everything they held dear depended on their success. Perry's strike team emerged from the shimmering warp gate onto the Mizarian homeworld, weapons at the ready. The planet's rust-colored sky loomed above them, casting an eerie glow across the alien landscape. Without hesitation, they stormed the communication hub, catching the Mizarian operators off guard. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as Perry and his team swiftly neutralized the enemy forces. Dr. Winters and Echo the Dolphin quickly hacked into the Mizarian broadcast system. Within moments, footage of Earth's victory against the invading fleet played across every screen on the planet. Panic gripped the Mizarian population as they witnessed the defeat of their once mighty armada. As the strike force pushed towards the capital city, they encountered fierce resistance from Draco's personal guard. Commander Zorg, Draco's ruthless second-in-command, led the charge, his genetically engineered super lizard at his side. The beast was a formidable opponent, its scales as tough as titanium and its jaws capable of crushing bone. Max, Perry's loyal German shepherd, leaped into action, engaging the super lizard in a vicious duel. The two animals clashed in a blur of teeth and claws, their battle a microcosm of the larger war raging around them. Perry and his team fought their way through the streets, the sound of gunfire and plasma bolts filling the air. They reached the base of the Mizarian High Council Tower, a towering spire that pierced the alien sky. Draco stood at the top, waiting for them. With Max at his side, Perry ascended the tower, ready to face his nemesis one final time. They burst onto the rooftop, where Draco stood, his plasma rifle leveled at Perry's chest. The two adversaries circled each other, the fate of their respective worlds hanging in the balance. Draco sneered, his eyes filled with hatred. "You may have won the battle, human, but you will never win the war." Perry gritted his teeth, his grip tightening on his rifle. "It's over, Draco. Your fleet is destroyed, and your people have lost faith in your leadership." With a roar of fury, Draco charged forward, abandoning his weapon in favor of hand-to-hand combat. Perry met him head-on, and the two leaders clashed in a brutal melee. They traded blows, each strike fueled by the weight of the lives lost and the futures at stake. Below them, Max and Zorg's super lizard continued their own battle. The German shepherd's speed and agility pitted against the lizard's raw strength and armor. Max darted in and out, looking for a weakness in his opponent's defenses. As Perry and Draco fought, the Mizarian leader's resolve began to waver. He could see the determination in Perry's eyes, the unwavering spirit of a species that refused to be conquered. With a final, desperate lunge, Draco attempted to gain the upper hand, but Perry was ready for him. The human ambassador countered Draco's attack, sending the Mizarian leader tumbling to the ground. Perry stood over him, his rifle aimed at Draco's head. "Yield," Perry demanded, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. Draco looked up at Perry, defeat etched across his alien features. He opened his mouth to speak, but his words were drowned out by a sudden cry of pain. Perry's head snapped to the side, his eyes widening in horror as he saw Max, his faithful companion, locked in the jaws of Zorg's super lizard. The German shepherd had managed to find a chink in the lizard's armor, but not before the beast had clamped down on Max's body, its razor-sharp teeth tearing through flesh and bone. Perry watched helplessly as Max went limp, his life slipping away in the jaws of the enemy. With a roar of anguish and fury, Perry turned back to Draco, his rifle now pressed against the Mizarian's skull. "Call off your beast," Perry growled, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. Draco, seeing the raw pain and anger in Perry's eyes, slowly raised his hands in surrender. "It's over," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We yield." Perry stood there for a moment, his finger tightening on the trigger. The temptation to end Draco's life, to avenge Max and all the others who had fallen, was almost overwhelming. But as he looked down at the Mizarian leader, he saw the same fear and desperation that he had seen in the eyes of his own people. With a shuddering breath, Perry lowered his weapon. "The war is over," Perry declared, his voice carrying across the rooftop. "The Mizarian High Council will surrender unconditionally, and your people will answer for the crimes they have committed against Earth and the galactic community." As the news of the Mizarian surrender spread, Perry made his way back to Max's side. The German shepherd lay motionless, his once bright eyes now glazed and lifeless. Perry knelt beside his fallen friend, tears streaming down his battle-hardened face. He gathered Max into his arms, cradling the dog's broken body as he wept. Around him, the strike force secured the Mizarian capital, rounding up the remaining enemy forces and beginning the long process of rebuilding. The war had been won, but the cost had been immeasurable. So many lives, both human and animal, had been lost in the struggle for survival. In the days that followed, the Galactic Council convened to discuss the aftermath of the war. Earth, once seen as a primitive and violent world, was now hailed as a champion of freedom and a defender of the innocent. The Council acknowledged the strength and resilience of humanity and the unique bond they shared with the animal kingdom. But for Perry and his team, the victory was bittersweet. They had achieved their objective, but the scars of the war ran deep. The loss of Max and so many other brave companions weighed heavily on their hearts, and the memories of the horrors they had witnessed would forever haunt their dreams. As Perry stood before the Galactic Council once more, now a respected diplomat and a hero to his people, he felt a small nudge at his side. He looked down to see a German shepherd puppy, its eyes wide and full of innocence. The puppy had been a gift from his team, a symbol of hope and renewal in the face of unimaginable loss. Perry picked up the puppy, holding it close to his chest as he addressed the council. "We have won the war," he said, his voice steady and clear, "but the true battle lies ahead. We must work towards a future where the bonds between humans and animals, and indeed all species, can be a source of unity and understanding rather than a cause for conflict. We must honor the memory of those who fell and strive to create a galaxy where their sacrifices were not in vain." As Perry spoke, the puppy in his arms let out a small bark, its tail wagging with excitement. For a moment, the weight of the war seemed to lift, replaced by a glimmer of hope for the future. Perry knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but with the support of his allies, both human and animal, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.